Come back from that short break. You are still watching the Dairy Lounge here on Dream TV and BTV. My name is Brenda Stella. I'm here with Alex Simbwa. A lot is happening, especially at Victory Christian Center. We are going to be sharing, but also you can visit www.imc.ug to watch us online, or the Victory Uganda, the Victory Uganda app. Now, we go all the way to Kenya.
In Kenya, there is an ambitious drive to vaccinate all animals there, especially cattle, this week amid fierce resistance from farmers that is being driven by apparently misleading claims about the vaccines. Now, the farmers will not spend a shilling. Huh?
That is
a point.
In
When
Africa,
something
that is
is
a
free,
first red flag. It could be an advantage or a disadvantage depending on where you're coming from. But
Robert Nkunku, who keeps cattle in Mahi near Nakuru town, around 50 kilometers from Nairobi, explained how it had become a toxic issue since President William Ruto announced the plan last November. He mentions and says if the community here learns about pro-vaccination, they will slay you. Just now, you stop talking about it. We do not want it, he says. Now, the government aims to vaccinate at least 22 million cattle and 50 million goats and sheep over a period of 3 years. Now, only 10% of the herd currently get the necessary vaccinations, and authorities want to raise this to 85% to make Kenya's livestock eligible for export. The president, who is a farm owner and has big herds himself, has said that the vaccines are vital in expanding the sector by controlling foot and mouth disease, as well as other pests and so on. But some of those who oppose the program believe that Microsoft owner Bill Gates is funding it, and fueled by people sharing videos of interviews featuring him talking about vaccination of cattle to control methane emissions. Now, the waste of animals, you've heard of biogas. Yeah, biogas usually comes from the waste of animals. If you get cow dung and keep it for a long period of time under certain conditions, you can get methane gas out of it, which is useful for certain things. For example, it can cook, it can light, it can do all of those things. But ideally, what Bill Gates thinks is that it contributes to the destruction of the ozone layer.
okay.
And therefore can lead to global warming. And he says, but you know, vaccination and the emission of, there's no way, because that you vaccinated cattle doesn't mean they are not going to do what? They're not going to produce waste.
Right.
Yeah, it means that methane will still be there, whether you vaccinated them or not. You get. So the point is carbon emissions, especially greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and others, are the worry, which is because it's the most common one. Now, a senior official in Kenya's Agriculture Ministry has denied that Gates is involved in the livestock vaccination program. I mentioned earlier, and I told you that it began as a conspiracy theory. The company is a US company called Monsanto. Monsanto are the makers of that Weedmaster and another that I've forgotten. Apparently, the pesticides are used to
Yes. But what is it?
It's a weed. So Weedmaster is supposed to take away Rumbugu. Formerly, when you want to do planting and so on, you use whatever means to make sure that you remove weeds, you weed your garden and so on. Currently, instead of weeding, they spray. And in that spraying and so on. But you see the spray has, I know of a case in the US where somebody won $280 something million from that company. Monsanto and so on, because he caught cancer after using Weedmaster for a very long period of time. You get it? So at times they begin as conspiracy theories, then eventually we discover
There
that
could be
there
some truth to it.
some truth to it.
When
and
you
so
talked
on.
about conspiracy theories and controversies, what came to my mind was the times of COVID vaccines and how people came out to say, you know what, ABCD could affect, by ABCD I mean certain
Some
vaccines that
and
were,
so on.
yeah, that were within the public, and they're like, this could affect. We also had.
What do you hear now?
I know of someone who was saying that since then, they're having issues with blood clotting.
Exactly. You get it?
Yeah.
Now, blood clotting eventually can lead to adverse other issues and so on. So you'll find somebody who was, because there's, what do they call them? Medications that are supposed to dissolve those blood clots.
Blood thinners.
Blood thinners and so on. Somebody begins taking blood thinners because they took the vaccine.
Yeah.
And I can point to people
Who are having
who are
such an
having
issue.
such an issue because they were vaccinated. Apparently, if you took 2 vaccines, the first phase and the second phase, you are affected. And that is there. You get it? I can point to more than one person who is experiencing that out of
Such
taking.
issues.
Yeah, you get it? So, and others who did not or who skipped the vaccine for one reason or another. Because mostly what prompted people to take the vaccine was what they saw when either they got sick or saw people dying or
Not
something
only
like
that,
Yeah.
me, I'm thinking also the travel restrictions that were
That's
there.
true. That's
yes,
true.
the
Yeah.
restrictions, because I know of a certain job actually that is not even a government job that had
A requirement.
Yes, it was a requirement. Before you get back, you have to go and get vaccinated and things like that. And I feel like, you see, even a mere painkiller or some can have a side effect on you. So I feel like for them to have come out to say no, even when we have just produced these, we have ascertained that there are no side effects. So for me, that is the lie that I caught. I'm like, come on, even these painkillers that
you
have
get
been on the
vaccinated?
market for long, you can't ask me that online, that have been here for long, they have side effects. So there is no way you can rule it out for all people in the world. We are talking about, by then, what? Let's say there were 7 billion
because
people.
were dying of heart attacks, because this is what happens. If the blood clotting is severe, it can lead to blockages in blood vessels, leading to heart attacks. Now, people were dying of heart attacks and they were attributing them to other things other than the vaccination.
Right.
You get it? So, unfortunately for us in the African countries, because how much did we spend on vaccination? Almost zero,
Yeah,
especially as
everything
far as
goes.
acquisition is concerned. We spent a lot of money, billions, on research, on vaccination. We had to buy rats that were worth billions and so on, and we've never come close to anything called a vaccine.
You know what? I need to be in the room in heaven when God is grilling some
people.
Ugandan people. Let's leave the rest of the world. Uganda, I need to be there.
They have
because
names.
in case he misses questions, I
You
have.
ask the question.
Yes,
and say,
I have.
Can you please ask them some of these ones?
I need to
It
be
is
there.
terrible. It was terrible. It was terrible that. Okay, we'll run to West Africa now. And the foreign ministers from what they call the Sahel nations met their colleagues from ECOWAS. ECOWAS is the Economic Community of West African States. That is the foreign ministers of Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, who are due to withdraw officially from the grouping of West African states on Tuesday, 28th January. They do so today. Now, at the gathering in Ouagadougou, they agreed to favor the global approach to negotiations and relations with ECOWAS within the framework of the alliance. The three countries announced their plans to leave a few months ago after formalizing their own grouping known as the AES. Now, ministers say discussions must take place, but also take into account the existence of the alliance as a united actor and enable talks to do what? To go on peacefully. Their relations with the bloc have been tense after military coups happened in Mali in 2020, in Burkina Faso and Niger in 2022. Sorry, in 2022 in Burkina Faso and 2024 in Niger. Now, ECOWAS condemned all the three coups and suspended their membership and pressed them to restore civilian rule. Now, this is typically what happens under such circumstances. You have agreements. Some of the agreements are bilateral.
Yeah.
You have an agreement between, for example, there was an agreement between Niger and Nigeria for the supply of electricity. Now, because of the coup in Niger, Nigeria said, we will no longer be supplying electricity to you as a, what do they call embargoes or what, and so on. Now, the trouble is that you're bringing political issues into an agreement. Let me give an example. I think we supply electricity to Kenya.
Yes.
And now just imagine, because of political differences,
internal
issues. Internal issues, because something happens inside Uganda and Kenya, and then it's inside Kenya. And you say, we will not longer be supplying electricity to Kenya. But how? You get it? Because the other one is an internal issue, and they've had some instances of internal issues there. But how do you decide and say, we will no longer supply you electricity because of what has happened in there?
And
now,
you know, some of these agreements are there so that they can deter people from emotional decisions. So that now you're not overwhelmed by whatever is happening in your country internally, like you're saying, but you can still stand on what was initially agreed upon, because then there are very many parties that came along for it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, Nigeria stopped supplying electricity. So Niger also decided to stop supplying onions.
I like
now,
that.
that may sound funny.
No, it's
but
not.
You see, some countries in West Africa, especially Nigeria, Nigeria doesn't do a lot of agriculture because their soil has been spoiled, for using a lighter word, by the oil, what do you call them? After you've refined the oil, the waste is badly dumped and it affects the soil. Right. You get it? Because I think in Hoima, that is something that they were thinking of considering and saying, okay, they do what they call an environmental impact assessment and say, after we've refined the oil or after we have taken what we need, what happens to the waste? Where do we put it? How does it affect the environment? Who will be affected? How do we prevent it? How, you get it? Yeah, so in Nigeria, they don't do a lot of agriculture. They depend a lot on the importation of the food they eat.
Right.
Now, the trouble is, when somebody says, I'm no longer giving you onions, it might sound funny on the surface, but you get.
Yeah. It's a lot of repercussions right there. Wow.
Okay.
We are going to end with the U.S. U.S. has been on a roll ever since, was that last week?
Last week, Monday.
Yes, Monday, when the new president came, after the inauguration, like, was it even after? On the real
He had already promised on the day of the inauguration.
Yes, but also, like you have said, not only had he promised, he campaigned. His whole thing was about illegal immigrants. Now, guess what? A mass arrests have been made nationwide within the U.S. And the first crackdown ever that they did brought forth 956 people. And of course, a number of federal agencies with newly expanded detention powers were involved in the raids in the number of cities, including Chicago, Miami, and Newark. Now, Trump came to power after making mass deportations of undocumented immigrants a central campaign promise. But while Joe Biden was here, he carried out an average of 311 immigration deportations
per day.
daily. Yeah. So now this one, in just one day, 956.
Yeah, but remember, these were also criminals.
Yes.
You get it? I was speaking to
The one
somebody
that
in one of those countries in North America, and they told me, if you're not a criminal, you can live there peaceably, even when you're not documented. If you're not a criminal, if you're not caught in a crime.
Yeah.
But the moment you are arrested, they will realize the overstays, they will realize whatever you've been doing. But if you can stay many years without anybody interfering, because they're not going to come to you. Unlike what I described to you in the UK, where even when you are legal in the country, they will ask you for your documentation.
At any point. And you know what? I know that sometimes we want to look at Trump and say, "Oh, this is like he's going overboard." But remember, there are two things he has been talking about: illegal. That is his main thing, illegal. So now, if you are in a place, and of course, I know sometimes because you are in it illegally, you could be pushed to a place of a crime simply because of how you have to lead your
Now,
life.
even illegal is a crime.
Actually, you add on to
The
the
other
injury,
crimes,
yes, because now you are being pushed to that place because you do not have probably a job or where to stay, or you're not in the system, so you're trying to make shortcuts in every way, and that's how you would end up there. But what are we going to see? And of course, this crackdown happened in Miami. It happened on Sunday, where the federal law enforcement agencies conducted several immigration enforcement actions, and the city's Homeland Security investigation came out to list some of these things. The local office in Miami detaining undocumented immigrants on various offenses. So I like that you have actually highlighted the fact that these are criminals. In case you find yourself in such a space, that is how you would end up being taken in.
Okay. The U.S. attempts to. The process is a little tedious and a little too long, but they attempt to allow people to enter the country legally. They have that green card lottery that they usually do, 50,000 people per year from specific countries and so on. Then there are those that have actually advantage over others and so on. For example, I know that from Northern Ireland, if you're from Northern Ireland, it's very, very easy for you to go. I don't know why, but very, very easy for you to go to the US, live there, work there, and be a citizen. But the other one they do is that there is what they call a golden visa. A golden visa, if you are worth about $100,000, you get it, and you're ready to invest that in the US, you're allowed, you're given a visa to go to the US, because apparently their worry is spending on you instead of you helping the economy to do what. Yeah, that's why for a certain age they will deny you a visa, and then for a certain younger person they will give. You get it? Because their chances of improving their lives and also improving the lives of others in the US are extremely higher than for you who is on the age of so they do,
So
because their community has a lot of the social services bit and so on, where if you're not employed, you have to be facilitated. If you're not you have to be looked after. If you're a certain age, you have to be, you get. So in order for that for them to prevent that unnecessary expenditure on you, because you enter for a good period of time, you're jobless. How do you survive if you're not a thief?
And then before you know it, now you're at the age of you have to be taken care of.
So some of that is what they try to do. But you see, you mentioned it yesterday and said that if you present yourselves as the land of opportunities, then let people be.
I know, and you know, it's the light side of it. I understand you can't say something like that, but I mean, it's only humanly for us to want that shines. If you say that, you know what, this is the land of dreams, here anything can
And let
happen.
people dream.
Yeah, so let people come and dream. Let people get into what the opportunity is that you are
Because
talking
even
about.
with the understanding that the country by itself, okay, they have Native Americans, what they call the Indians and so on. But the rest of you came from somewhere, someday.
Let's talk about, what's his name?
Obama.
No. That rich man who was at the inauguration.
Elon Musk.
Yes. He is from South Africa.
You see?
And a Canadian at that. So he had to go through all those things before he got to America. But like you said, probably he had $100,000 to invest in
a lot more,
America. So we'll leave it at that. And of course, you can follow us on all our social media platforms at DreamTV, BTV, Victory, Christian Center, to know all the information of what is happening. But tomorrow we have the Wednesday High Flyer service, and this is basically about people who are, according to Alex, beba abantu ababuukira.
Abakozemu. Bwe batambulira mu nnyonyi batambulira mu business class.
Yes. But I would want to board a business class.
You first fly and get some frequent flyer miles, and then we shall be able to give you business class. Go Turkish next time, so they'll recognize you as a frequent flyer and award you some free miles.
Oh, Turkish, I'm coming. Have a blessed day. May God bless the works of your hands. Until tomorrow, bye-bye.